What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? We are back. This is season 3, week 2 of Outside the Box here with Fantasy Points CEO Scott Barrett, master of dank stats. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. While you're coming in, please do like the video if you haven't already done so. Helps us out quite a bit, and make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Points YouTube channel. It is a quickly growing channel, and with good reason. They're putting out great content basically every day, almost all year at Fantasy Points. Highly recommend subscribing if you haven't already done so. Scott, in week 1, some hits, some misses. Ultimately, I didn't win any. I lost money on the main slate in week 1. Did you do any better, or were you mostly regretting the unknowns in week 1?
Yeah, I got rocked, but honestly, like, I feel really good about my process. I think I made, some good calls that just didn't work out, but like, in hindsight, very, very happy with it. That's not cope. I thought I'd pretty good. Usually I beat myself up more. The only bad process thing is every year I say, go light week 1, only put down maybe 60% of your bankroll. And then every week 1, I just get too excited and I throw down like 120% of my bankroll and I get rocked. Yeah, this is fun. Hey, we got more data. And week 2 is always a very profitable week for us, Neil, even though like I'm very much an analytics guy. So I do better with like maybe 4 weeks of data, and, weeks 1, 2, 3 is like, film guys have an edge or something. But yeah, week 2 is very much just, hey, fade the guys who went crazy last week, because we still don't really know anything, but you have this overconfidence from the field that thinks they know, oh, Justin Fields is the best quarterback in fantasy, and Daniel Jones is the second best quarterback, and so different things like that. That's going to be a big edge for us this week.
Yeah, week 2 is a funny one for me because I always feel like I should have massive edge in week 2 for exactly that reason. I don't think I've had a ton of success, at least on the main slates in week 2. I actually think I've taken down a showdown slate in week 2, so overall profitable for me. But on main slates, I think that I've gotten rocked most week 2, even though I always feel like I have a huge advantage. And I think part of the struggle for me, like this week in particular, I've noticed like the pricing is so soft. So like I always like to go super fancy with my plays. So last week, Travis Etienne went really well. Jerome Ford, not so well for me last week. 2 of my more fancy plays last week, but I do those, and you just don't really need them when pricing is as soft as it is this week. So I think we can lean in on projections maybe a little bit more than some of my off the wall, or you might say outside the box thinking on some of these plays. And I think that maybe is a struggle for me is, I always want to get pretty contrarian plays, some really low owned plays. But then when the ownership is this soft, or sorry, when the salaries are this soft, just like sometimes the higher owned plays are going to be some of the best plays. So we're going to have to sift through which of these, really nice value plays are legit and we actually want to play them, and which of them maybe we can fade and get a little bit of an edge by fading some of the bad chalkier plays that maybe are over projected relative to where they're going to be going forward. Love talking this stuff through with you because you're great at sifting through the data that we have, although we only have 1 week right now, so it's going to be a little bit tough, but we're going to make the most of it, and I'm excited to talk through this slate with you, Scott. Any other thoughts on week 1, or you want to get right into it with the quarterbacks?
Let's get into it, man.
All right, let's get right into it. Let's party. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, the 2 quarterbacks that we have projected here for double-digit ownership. Lamar Jackson at 11%, Joe Burrow at 10%. Lamar playing Cleveland, which I think is going to be a tough defense. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then Joe Burrow playing Jacksonville, which was not a great defense last year. I don't know what your expectations are about the defense if they're going to take a step forward, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Lamar and Burrow today. Do you like this chalk? Is this not chalky enough? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think Lamar Zay, ignoring ownership is either the best or the second best play of the week. But I also think it's a Derrick Henry week. Scott DiBenedetto, our O-line guru, spent 10 years as a scout with the Browns, thinks it's a Derrick Henry week. So there's that as an argument against him for ownership. But I do think you throw out ownership for sure. One of the 3 best plays of the week would be Lamar Jackson, very in play for cash. And then Joe Burrow, it's, before the season started, right? Like, let's say we had an outside the box in early August, and it's like, what are the quarterbacks we're going to want to have the most exposure to? Like quarterbacks, like maybe we just, play every single week, and it's like, oh, Joe Burrow dub stacks all the way at the top of that list. And what happened last week is they sucked ass, but Joe Burrow always sucks ass against the Browns. I kept bringing that up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's ownership. Is historically the Browns have owned Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's also always gotten off to a slow start for whatever reason. And so, if you just throw out Cleveland Brown games, then yeah, Joe Burrow doubles looks awesome, or Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins all look like amazing individual plays in their own right. So I certainly can't be mad at this ownership. I will just say, especially in a week 2, I'm always looking for, I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm going to try and be more contrarian, but for a smaller field, higher dollar tournament, can't really get mad at this.
The next 2 plays playing in the same game, Justin Fields look pretty good from a fantasy standpoint, at least last week. I'm curious your thoughts on the matchup with Buffalo and then Josh Allen. I know you talked about it last night a bit with Ryan and Jake. So excited to hear. Do you like 8% Josh Allen? Let's just talk about both the quarterbacks in that game. Do you like both of them? Do you have a lean?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. Like, this game is really interesting to me. Ryan Heath and I had this pet conspiracy theory that Breece Hall was hurt all of last year, like the entire season. Our film charters, our fantasy points data film charters in week 2, it was so early. It was like, yeah, Breece Hall lost a step. He just doesn't look like the same guy from a season ago. And that just kind of stayed the same the entire year. There were like whispers of an injury in July of that year and like weirdness coming out. There was also a fantasy point subscriber DMing me saying he saw Breece Hall out at the club like every single night throughout the summer. And then fantasy points data charters were telling me like Breece Hall looks amazing last week. He looks incredible. Brett Whitefield was telling me, dude, Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson look like major league winners. I know it's just one game. It's just one, you don't want to overreact to that. But Tanner Engstrom called a hell of a game. And the Jets offense looked way more like the Lions offense than the Lions. And, how many millies have Lions players won over the years? And they kind of, and the Buffalo Bills defense was awful. And the Jets offense stylistically is very similar to the Ravens offense, who lost that game, but basically could do whatever they wanted. Derrick Henry was averaging like 10 yards per carry. Lamar Jackson, I think, had, I don't know, like 30 fantasy points on 20 pass attempts. So, and like the Jets offense, who they are and what they want to be is very similar to the Ravens to me. And, they want to be very run heavy. And this was one of the top 3 biggest run funnels in the league last year by pass rate over expectation. So just controlling for game script and the fact that like the Bills always led, but teams still opted to run because that's the weakness of their defense. And they gave up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So you watched Cashing Points yesterday, and I don't think I talked it up to this degree, but I think it's really interesting. So if the Jets can push, if not, the Bills are going to be the Bills where, they're, when they need Josh Allen to be Superman, he'll score 40 fantasy points because he's the best fantasy player in the game and like the best quarterback in the league, arguably. But they don't always want that to be the case. Can the Jets push them here? Even if not, this is like the ultimate matchup for Josh Allen. We've been on this for forever, is Aaron Glenn defenses just get absolutely destroyed by hypermobile quarterbacks. Josh Allen scored 44.3 DraftKings fantasy points against Aaron Glenn last year, 30.9 in their only other matchup. Since 2022, hypermobile quarterbacks see a 30% boost to their fantasy points per game against Aaron Glenn defenses. He does not change his scheme. It's the same scheme no matter what. and is a very man-heavy scheme, which benefits mobile quarterbacks because they have their backs turned to the quarterback, and like Josh Allen just absolutely destroys man coverage. I think this is the stat. You could pull up fantasy points data to fact check me, but I think it's last year he had 19 passing touchdowns against man coverage, and he only had 4 passing touchdowns against zone coverage. I think that's what it was. At the very least, he was 31st in passing touchdowns against zone coverage, and he was first in passing touchdowns against man coverage. And so just an amazing matchup. And so if you want to bet on the thesis that the Jets might be legit, which, by the way, their beat writers were telling you this is going to be the worst offense in football this year, in the summer when we had different practices and whatnot. But yeah, I keep coming back to it. And there's a very good chance the Jets just don't show up and Josh Allen's not pushed. But if they can, Garrett Wilson, did really well against the Bills last year. And Breece Hall is like Rich Rebar's favorite running back play, JM to Win's favorite running back play. I wasn't as bullish, but it is like I said, a great run funnel spot. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I kind of just rambled, and I don't know how much sense I made, but yeah, I gave this some serious consideration. I will say Josh Allen is probably my favorite pay up for quarterback at ownership.
Scott, I did not know how to find how many touchdowns he threw against man versus zone.
Yeah, it would be advanced passing and then the filter coverage shells. We don't have to go through it right now.
All right. But yeah, you can find it there. By the way, if anybody wants to check that out yourself, you can use promo code OTB15 or use the scan the code below. If you want to check out anything at Fantasy Points that includes the data suite, which I absolutely love. If you don't think you have time to comb through the data suite, but you still want that information, I mean, Scott's doing the work for you. Jake's doing the work. Everybody at Fantasy Points is doing the work for you, putting out some really advanced articles behind the paywall as well. So if you want access to the content or the data suite yourself, use promo code OTB15 for 15% off any package at Fantasy Points. Don't wait till halfway through the season. Sign up now. I'd recommend it. All right.
Yeah. Real quick. NFL premium package is $175. And then you get 15% off of that. You get our full props package, all bets, and everything DFS related outside of the optimizer, and access to the Discord and my slate breakdown and Ryan Heath's advanced matchup. So that would be the premium package.
Yep. Highly recommend it. Bing King got lost on what we were talking about. We're talking about Josh Allen, just talking about how it is based on the schematics of the matchup. Aaron Glenn, Jets defensive coordinator, likes to.
Yeah. So just him and Fields. It's really just if the Jets can show up and like, it looks like a good schematic for the Jets, who they are today and who they want to be, based on what we saw from the Ravens, a similar offense. If they show up, Josh Allen could go absolutely berserk and Garrett Wilson could have a good game. Breece Hall could have a good game. If they don't show up, then Josh Allen isn't pushed and Lamar probably clears him. Maybe even Jalen Hurts clears him. So that's how you're sort of balancing it. I kind of like this game stack. But outside of that, I'm fine not having a piece of this game.
Do you have a lean when you play Breece Hall? Do you think you would like him to be in lineups with Justin Fields, or like as a one-off without Justin Fields, maybe a bring back for Josh Allen? How do you think you'd like to play that setup?
Yep, probably without Fields personally. That was one of my notes. Like I said, Breece Hall has been a guy that, JM to Win and Rich Rebar, who may be my favorite two DFS analysts outside of the Fantasy Points family. They both had Breece Hall as their favorite running back of the week. But to me, I looked at, it's still very much a committee, even though he was clearly the most efficient back. And I don't think they want to get away from that just yet. Even if it is maybe an inevitability. And then I think we're overstating his impact as a pass catcher. He only ran 7 routes last week, a 28% route share. That was crazy. So, we'll have Isaiah Davis mix in some, Braylon Allen mix in some. So I think he works best off of Fields because they can cannibalize each other with the vulture touchdowns and whatnot.
We got to ask the question about what's included in the premium package. So you can see it on the top of the page if you click plans. So the NFL premium package does not include the data suite. You need the all-in bundle or the data suite package. But you can find out what's in all the plans. It lists it if you just go to the plans at the top there. Just wanted to make sure people know where they can find what is available where. All right. So then Trevor Lawrence, I mean, we have him at 8% ownership here. He is 5,600. Price seems fair. Are we ever going to see? I know you've always been a Trevor Lawrence hater, and that hatred seemed pretty good last week. Still, is this the week though against Cincinnati's defense? Are you finally going to buy in on Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, like I'll criticize Trevor Lawrence and people, oh, you're just a Trevor Lawrence hater. You've been a hater from the start. And it's like, yeah, I'm waiting to be proven wrong. I've been right 5 out of 5 years. Like, please, let's. So I'm not going to play Trevor Lawrence just because like I'm such a hater and it's like antithetical to the brand. And like, let's wait for him to have 330 passing yards in a game because he's only hit that number or exceeded it 3 times in like 62 career games. Jacksonville Jaguars backup quarterback Nick Mullins has exceeded 395 passing yards 3 times in 20 career starts. So I need to see it. But I also won't fault you for playing Trevor Lawrence because like I think he's overrated. I don't think he's as bad as he was last week. And I am very, very much a Liam Cohen truther. So you can play him. He's just a guy who's never really had the spike weeks we covet in DFS. So I'm just going to wait until I see it first. And hey, if it happens next week, I'll be more bullish in week 3, but I'm just going to wait for that.
He's like the ultimate, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. I mean, ready to give up on him. And then they get Liam Cohen, they get Travis Hunter. Like suddenly it's like, all right, brand new offense. Who knows? Maybe these are the
components. I have a guy like that too, who's really gross. You're going to get some eye rolls in chat.
Well, Kyle Pitts is Sunday night, so I guess it's not. He feels like one of those to me. By the way, I heard you say you almost said nice things about Wan'Dale Robinson on the show last night. I did notice.
Yo,
you came pretty close.
It's like the perfect Wan'Dale game in my opinion, and you know how much I hate him. So yeah,
I do know. Yeah. Jalen Hurts against Kansas City. I don't know what to make of the Chiefs defense. Are they going to take a step back this year? That would be awesome for their offense, and the games would be more fun if the defense is not quite so dominant. Hurts 6% projected ownership seems fine. 6,800. What do you think of Hurts here?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe a little step back. I think that's fair. But like on the ground, this is still probably the 2 best run defenses in football. And both teams have great quarterbacks. So I think there's a good chance we're in for a high scoring affair. You look at it and it's like only the 5th highest over under the week. And that's probably like what Chris has in his projections. But if you want to talk about like slate breaking outcomes, it should be maybe top 3 instead of top 5. Just because of what we know about both of these offenses and, elite quarterbacks. I also like that Dallas Goedert's out this week. I think that could be a good thing, condensing the offense, making Jalen Hurts easier to stack. All the super high price quarterbacks look way too cheap to me. Like Lamar shouldn't be 7K. Josh Allen shouldn't be 7K. Jalen Hurts shouldn't be 6.8. And so yeah, I like it. The listeners might be a little annoyed at me for talking about too many quarterbacks. It's just, that's sort of like what this week is to me. It's a good week to make multiple lineups with multiple quarterbacks. But yeah, Jalen Hurts for sure in my pool.
It's also my fault because I've brought up all of the first 6 quarterbacks here for the same reason, because it is like, I do have favorites. Like I love Joe Burrow here. I love Dak Prescott. I have some favorite quarterbacks, but I have a lot that I like sort of have interest in, and I want to hear your thoughts on them. So it's not your fault that you're talking about them. It's because I want to hear your thoughts on every quarterback. Not every quarterback. We will start mixing around here. Actually, I was going to go straight down to Dak Prescott, but then I'm like, but Kyler Murray is playing Carolina. So I think we just continue down the line here. Kyler Murray, 6% owned against Carolina. I don't think we can just completely ignore that. Do you have any interest in Kyler?
Yeah, so I didn't write him up. And again, this is just another one of those guys I never play, and I think he's overrated. I will say I was encouraged by his week 1 rushing a lot more design runs than I expected, because this was a big talking point in the offseason. But at the combine, the head coach was asked about Kyler running more, and he was like, nah, I think we're good with where we had it. And then like Kyler was asked about it, and he was like, hey, the haters say you're lazy and you don't want to run. Actually, like Brian Schottenheimer alluded to this in one of his press conferences, which like I had never heard a coach talk about a player who wasn't his. And he was like, it was a very leading question. He was like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I'll probably run more this year. But like in reality, like did not get those vibes. And then he did run more. And it's a good matchup. Another note too is, so before their week 11 bye last year, so pretty deep into the season, they were bottom 5 in pass rate over expectation. And then after their bye, they were top 5 in pass rate over expectation. Week 1, they were again like fringe top 5. And so in that pass heavy sample, Trey McBride puts up high end wide receiver 1 numbers, 11.4 targets per game, 82 yards per game. So you can play Kyler. I wouldn't get mad at you against a bad Panthers defense. Maybe that pass rate sticks, even though Panthers have one of the worst run defenses in football. But again, he's just not one of my guys, and I'm probably not going to have any exposure to him.
Yeah. Moving down the list, more Dak Prescott stood out to me after talking. We had Ryan on the cage match this weekend, and Ryan brought up it being a great schematic matchup for CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, playing a lot of the Giants who play a lot of what do you call it, cover 1 or single high. Great matchup. Both excel against single high. I think 3.25 yards per run last year for George Pickens against single high. So it seems like a pretty nice spot for both of the receivers, which makes me really want to play Dak Prescott. But I know the game environment against the Giants offense, who knows if they can actually keep up and push the pace a little bit. Where do you come down on Dak Prescott stacks?
Yeah, so this is one that Ryan and Jake and I butt heads over throughout the week. I'm Javonte, I think, is going to be one of my flag plans.
I hate it so much.
As gross as that is. But yeah, so the schematic is like amazing for Dak. If you look at all wide receivers over the past 3 seasons, both Pickens and Lamb are top 5 in fantasy points per route run against single high and man coverage. They see a massive boost in comparison to zone. Dak Prescott, you could be critical of Dak Prescott, but I think the 2 most accurate quarterbacks in football, certainly by the numbers, are Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott. And there's not really a close third after those 2. And so part of that is an intense confidence Dak Prescott has in getting the ball to his guys, particularly Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, in man coverage, trusting them in those spots and trusting his accuracy in those spots. So it is a really good schematic matchup. Dak Prescott kind of struggled last year. He got hurt, whatever. But the year before that, remember, in like the second half of the year, was like the player to have in DFS every single week, stacked up with CeeDee Lamb. My concern is I think Russell Wilson looked easily like the worst quarterback in football last week, and there was a lot of bad quarterbacking. And I think the Giants are going to struggle to get more than 3 first downs. Does Jerry, want to just totally flex on the Giants and just like beat them by 40? Or are we in for a Javonte game? I really do not trust the Giants here to show up, especially against a Matt Eberflus defense that is designed to take away the opposing team's number 1, and all they have is a number 1 receiver. They don't have anything else. So I came in a little bit lower, but still higher than, 6%. And according to Ryan and Jake, this is maybe like the best quarterback play of the slate.
Yeah, and I like him quite a bit. So you're 3 against 1 here with your Dak fade, but I'll make you build one so you don't have a complete fade.
Good.
We'll build one at the end of the show to make sure that you have at least some exposure in case it does go off. I just love that, like, they didn't do anything last week, even though Dak looked really good. It was just 2 Javonte touchdowns, so like might go a little bit under the radar. Although we're talking about every show at Fantasy Points.
Well, this is the debate. And again, I wasn't too much lower. It was just my favorite quarterback for GPPs outside of contrarian levels of ownership, which is like 5% or less. I had Dak Prescott 2. They had him 1. I have Drake May 1, who is just right below him there. This is my Exodia quarterback. I had Justin Herbert. I had Justin Fields, all in consideration. Daniel Jones, even JJ McCarthy, maybe, and like all those guys went crazy. And then Drake May sort of flopped despite leading the league in pass attempts. I'm not ready to give up, and certainly not in this matchup, which looks like the best possible matchup. We're going to see, like maybe Daniel Jones scores 40 fantasy points again, but I think more likely it's just, as we all expected, Miami has the worst secondary in all of football. They're also now without Storm Duck, who has the best name in football. Yeah, believe it or not, Patriots are 1.5 point underdogs here. So Drake May, not a lot to love last week, but he did lead the league in pass attempts. It's a perfect matchup. I think he's actually pretty easy to stack, or at least I like the stack I've come up with. So this was maybe my favorite GPP quarterback of the week.
They're talking about maybe working in Trevion a little bit more this week, which I think would be a positive for that offense. Sure. Also, we'll have to talk about the stacking angle with Drake May, because it's a little bit tough, but maybe you have some players that you really like in the stacks. We'll get there when we talk other positions. I'm fading Mahomes. I don't know if you have anything you want to say about. Actually, sorry, I skipped over the one player that I really did want to. One of the couple players left that I really want your thoughts on. Mac Jones is only 4,000. So like normally we're not excited to play Mac Jones, but he's just mispriced for a starting quarterback in what I think is a pretty good matchup with the Saints. Where do you come down on Mac Jones? Would you play him at all? Are you going to force stacks with him? How do you think you're going to play it?
Yeah, so this is maybe my favorite GPP quarterback play. I like May. I really like Mac Jones. It's just spicier, it's a little, for large field tournaments, especially. The great stat that Ryan had is 49ers backup quarterback since 2022 average 18.7 DraftKings fantasy points per game. So, really smashing value at that 4K salary. Last year, Josh Dobbs, week 18, made us a ton of money. And it's a similar bet. I kind of like that this offense is, it's certainly not ideal that, you don't have Trent Williams is questionable. You have Jawan. Well, he's going to play. And, Mac Jones, I don't think is great, but I'm just like such a true believer in Kyle Shanahan. And by the way, don't forget, Kyle was obsessed with Mac Jones. He let himself get bullied into Trey Lance, but he moved up for Mac Jones. That was his guy. That was the guy he wanted. Why? Because he believes in himself, his offense, and he knew Mac could just run the offense as designed. And yeah. And so what I was saying is it's a more condensed offense. You look at what happened last week. It was literally just Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey. I think there's a really good chance it is again. And so you could play Mac Jones, you could play Ricky Pearsall, you could play Christian McCaffrey, and then you could just fit whoever else you want. So that's a unique build with a ton of upside. And the flip side of this is I think there's a really good chance all year, Neil, Al Zeidenfeld came up with this a number of years ago, the flow chart, where it's just like you have rules in DFS where like as you're doing your research, your prep, the first thing is, tight ends against Bengals last year would have been one of them, right? And so this year, I think a big one of them is who is playing the Saints. Stack up whoever that is, because it's an awful defense, but Kellen Moore, his pace of play is going to be at a top 3 level. And that means a ton of plays run for the opposing side. And so, Coors Field of DFS was a thing back in the day. It could be very similar again this season. So I like that idea. So I like Mac Jones. I like Ricky Pearsall. I like Christian McCaffrey. I like Chris Olave. I like Juwan Johnson. Maybe Juwan Jennings, but this is really exciting to me, especially at ownership.
Love it. Yeah. I kind of thought he was going to be chalky, but only projected for 6% ownership. That is my cage match quarterback, my first round pick in the cage match. So hoping that one works out. From there, it's a lot of quarterbacks that I don't have a ton of interest in. Maybe you have more interest than I do in some of them. A couple that I do have interest in, Jared Goff at Chicago. I think Detroit, I mean, we saw how good that Green Bay defense is last night. And I think the week one might have been a fluke. They actually have a 26.5 implied team total last I saw, and Jared Goff getting just 2% ownership. So I guess we can just start there. Do you have interest in 2% owned Jared Goff?
Yeah, that was one of the ones I tried to sell Ryan and Jake on last night. I think he's a great Millie quarterback. I might not play him anywhere else, but he struggled last week, but it was a road game. We know he averages like 11 fantasy points per game more at home, more than any other quarterback. It was against what was probably the best defense in football. He has the second highest implied point total of the week. He's only showing 2% ownership. The defense he's facing just allowed JJ McCarthy in his first ever game to finish top 3 in fantasy points per dropback. It's a favorable schematic matchup. Should see more man than typical. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to have a slot cornerback facing him. He's just tricky to stack is my thing. And, I'm not an MME guy. But, that argument I just made is very compelling to me.
I think it's worth noting, though, that JJ McCarthy is him, and he just needed half a game, 3/4 of a game to establish that he's him. So maybe JJ McCarthy just exposed that.
He defense. Is him. I'll give you that. Can't deny it.
So Aaron Rodgers,
I called that comeback, by the way. I was DMing with Brett.
Did you?
When there was whenever the win probability was at its absolute lowest, I'm like, I DM Brett. I'm like, I'll bet you anything they make a comeback here. It's the grittiest quarterback in football versus the softest quarterback in football. Like there's no way it doesn't happen.
Love it. Yeah, that was so fun. I was watching it with some friends in one of my friends' backyard on a big projector, and we were just so deflated for 3/4 of the game. And then it was just like, oh my God, just so exciting at the end. So loved that.
The best sweat of my life was I bet a draft sheet that the Patriots would beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl. And then that just watching that come
28-3 game. Yeah, I bet that was fun. Yeah,
it was like a little mini 28-3. The Bills game too. Primetime games were awesome last week.
Yep. DJB says Neil breaking out his Vikings colored glasses. I mean, yeah, that is true. I need to gloat though. They have a really tough schedule, so I need to gloat while they're undefeated. All right. So one quarterback that honestly I don't have a lot of natural interest in, but I ran some sims earlier and was getting to just a ton of Aaron Rodgers because he's projected for 1% owned. Last week at least they threw it a lot, but that was against the Jets. I don't know that we can expect him to the pass rate to continue to be as high as it was last week, and the number of plays for Aaron Rodgers, who typically plays pretty slow. What are your thoughts? Do you have any interest in Aaron Rodgers against who are the Seattle?
Yeah, I mean he finished top 5 in fantasy points per dropback last week, and the Jets I think are a tough defense. I wouldn't go there, partly because he's really tough to stack and it's an Arthur Smith offense. But like a note I would have on Rodgers, we were just talking about the flow chart, would be against really bad defensive fronts, defenses that don't get pressure. I think he's a really good play. Outside of that, I'd avoid him just because he still has the accuracy. He's still brilliant and whatnot. It's just he's old and does not have any mobility in the pocket. So I wouldn't go there this week.
All right. Any other quarterbacks that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I think you could go back to the well on Joe Flacco. I think just based on projected volume and pace, it's a really good spot. And so maybe it's a cheaper way to, get access to that game you stack it up with Tillman, who's a top value. Judy's a top value. Fannon's a top value. Derrick Henry or Zay Flowers on the other side. So that's in play. And I'm trying to see if I had anyone else I wrote up. I will say this is super YOLO Millie lineup, but I did add in Spencer Rattler for the same reason as Mac Jones. One of Ryan Heath's stats, which I thought was excellent, was only 2 teams had multiple wide receivers to finish top 15 in XFP last week. It was the Giants and the Saints. And if you kind of Juwan as a wide receiver, Saints would have had 3 guys in there, which is crazy. Basically the same thesis, but just I'm hoping that this game is what we call a slop fest, where it's like 2 bad teams have an ugly game, but it still combines for like, 62 points, something like that. But that is just like my biggest galaxy brain call I could think of. And even then, I strongly lean Mac Jones.
Yeah, just for the largest fields. Okay. All right. Well, then let's move on to running backs. Do want to remind people, please do like the video if you haven't already done so. Last I looked, we had like 168 watching and only 31 likes on the video. Would really appreciate it if you would like the video and make sure you are subscribed to the Fantasy Points YouTube channel if you're not already. Looking at the top of ownership. Okay, so you have Christian McCaffrey way higher owned than the last source I saw, which had him at just like 25%, I think. Oh, no, actually, never mind. You are close. I lowered the ownership to get to more because I like Christian McCaffrey so much this week, but at this ownership was not getting to a ton in the Sims. He's 7,500. Seems like a pretty great matchup in the Saints. Seems like he should get a ton of workload here. What is your level of interest in Christian McCaffrey at 35% owned?
Yeah, well, I think he's the best play of the slate, ignoring ownership by like a landslide. I think we're projecting for like 31 touches with a ton of high value touches because he's so heavily involved in the passing game. But when you're faced with a 35% ownership, you can get away from him. It's just, hey, maybe the volume is there, but he doesn't score a touchdown, because that's sort of been an issue. And, Mac Jones is now the quarterback. Trent Williams is questionable. I can see that happening. But like that just comes down to the ownership. It's a game theory call. And I feel good about that if you're not, already correlated. So, I'm going to have some lineups with Christian McCaffrey as a one-off. Certainly would not full fade that. And I will have come in well above the field and Mac Jones. So I'll have some correlated Christian McCaffrey lineups. And then in cash, you would have 100% CMC for sure.
Yeah, definitely a cash play and a play that I like quite a bit in tournaments. Although, yeah, worth noting that when I ran the Sims, giving him, I think 33% ownership, I was only getting like 15%. So I had to make some adjustments to force in more because I wanted. I think it's just such a great play. Then you have Devin Achane and Chase Brown, both over 20% owned. Achane at 6,900 facing New England, Chase Brown 6,800 facing Jacksonville. Do you have a preference between those two? They're coming in, basically the same price tag, same ownership. Do you like them both? Do you have a preference? How are you leaning with these two?
Yeah, I like Achane a little bit more. I don't like that Austin Jackson, their starting right tackle's out. There's a chance that Miami is just dead. Like everyone's just waiting for Mike McDaniel to get fired. The way they called that game in week 1 was absolutely awful. But no, I wrote him up as a cash play. I think he could be a garbage time god. He looked really good. The efficiency was there last week. But again, you're faced with a guy at 21% ownership. So there's an argument to get away from him. Chase Brown too, like the pro argument was he was the closest to Christian McCaffrey among running backs in terms of volume. He ranked second in XFP per team play. Cincinnati just ran an inordinately low number of plays. Rich Rebar, by the way, had a great take that maybe that was because the defensive coordinator left. You see their plays allowed go up, which reduces their plays per game on offense. But anyway, second in XFP per team play. One concern is the route share was at like 45%, down from like 75% in the second half last year. So that's a little concerning, but again, it's sort of the same thing. Wrote them both up as cash plays, but you can get away from them when you're looking at a 20% ownership and it's week 2.
For sure. So just pulling up the data suite here in case we want to look at any numbers here for the running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs here. So again, we talked about Detroit. Did nothing last week. It was just a really tough matchup with Green Bay. Gibbs now facing Chicago. He is 7,400, getting 14% ownership. I skipped right past Kyron, who's also he's only 6,300. So the workload pretty strong for a $6,300 running back. Tough matchup, I think, with Tennessee. But Kyron projected for 17% ownership. Gibbs at 14%. I guess we can go through those two and then we'll pick and choose our spots. But do you like Williams at Kyron at 17% or Gibbs at 14%?
Yeah, I like Kyron. I like him more than Chase Brown. I wrote them all up as cash plays. People kind of maybe don't know this as well as they do for Derrick Henry, but Kyron really one of the most game script sensitive running backs in fantasy football, which makes sense because he's not that heavily involved as a pass catcher, but he's led the league in XFP per game, fantasy points per game inside the red zone in each of the last 2 seasons. I think one of the rules we might be making this year is that you want to come really close to having at least one Rams player on your lineup every week. And, some exposure to the Rams or Stafford stacked up just because, Sean McVay offenses are awesome, tons of, fantasy goodness. But it's also one of the most condensed offenses in fantasy football where it's really just, Puka, breaking records last year in XFP per route run. You have Devontae Adams in the Cooper Kupp role, which, has been worth top 10 among wide receivers in XFP per game. And he looks less dusty than Cooper Kupp was. And then Kyron Williams, dominant role inside the red zone at the very least. So really good touchdown upside. And this should be a game that the Lions win, second highest implied point total, as we were saying. But the opposite side, I had Jahmyr Gibbs. I finally did it late August. I moved Gibbs ahead of Bijan as my RB1 in redraft. And it's really a bet that the most efficient running back in football last year was going to see more work under this new offensive play caller. And we did see that in week 1. He played on 65% of the Lions snaps. That was the most ever in a game with David Montgomery. He finished top 3 in XFP. Keep in mind, this is a guy who routinely finished 18th in XFP. He just finished first, second, or third in fantasy points. And yeah, like I said, second highest implied point total of the week. And so I see a ton of upside, ton of slate wrecking potential. He's not as good of a play as Christian McCaffrey, but when his ownership is a third of Christian McCaffrey's and they're the same price, I like that as a pivot. I think that's interesting to me. The one concern here is the Lions offensive play caller sucked week 1. I think he just shit his pants, and the offensive line looks a lot worse than it was a season ago. And that was a big reason why Gibbs was so efficient. But again, I do like this play a lot.
I was trying to look up what the splits looked at when they were either leading or tied, and that just didn't happen in week 1. Any concern about the possibility that was kind of because of the way the game went? Like they just got behind, which just favors Gibbs a little bit more than it does Montgomery. Do you think we could see Montgomery, if they get ahead, do you think Montgomery could take back closer to what his role was last year, or are you optimistic that it's going to continue to be the Gibbs show primarily?
No, for sure. And that would make sense. Gibbs would be better in games you're trailing throughout. But I also said, I think regardless, we just see Gibbs get more work. And, John Morton kind of hinted at that all throughout the offseason, maybe regardless of game script, as he's just the way more explosive and talented running back. But yeah, I mean, even if it was negative game script, 10 targets is crazy.
Yeah. For sure. Great workload there for Gibbs. All right, I skipped over Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor. Do you have any?
Yeah, so did I.
Interest? Okay, you're not interested, or what?
No, I would just rather play Derrick Henry when you're looking at those prices, because to me it's very much a similar bet. But I really like this spot for Derrick Henry. Like I said, Scott DiBenedetto really loves this spot. They're just not going to run to Myles Garrett's side of the field. They're just going to run to the opposite side, and they're going to have success doing so. And this is one of my calls in the offseason was Derrick Henry was going to be who Saquon was last year. And so I see more touchdown upside. I see more slate wrecking potential. I see a better matchup. Again, extremely game script sensitive. I feel better about the Ravens' chances of winning this game by a lot than I do about the Eagles beating the Chiefs or the Colts beating Denver's league best defense. So I didn't write up Saquon. I didn't write up Jonathan Taylor. I did write up Derrick Henry.
You also wrote up Javonte Williams. I'm guessing, at least you talked about him a lot on the show last night. Javonte, 5,800 projected for 11% ownership. Do you think that you like him enough to get over this 11% number?
Yeah, I think I will. I especially like him stacked with Cowboys defense, who looks like a good value to me. But you just look at that week 1 usage, 80% snap share, 71% route share, 17 XFP. Dallas called a run play on 83% of their plays inside the red zone. And again, I just think the Giants are lucky if they get like 4 first downs, maybe, because you look at the spread, you look at, maybe that's wrong, but that's how it looks to me. Like 100 yards from scrimmage, Giants offense. And yeah, I think they like Javonte. I really do. And I think they're going to stick with this usage, kind of coach speak after the fact and leading into the game kind of hinted at that. So Javonte is one of my favorite GPP running back plays of the week for sure.
As a Miles Sanders best ball drafter, that was the most tilting thing on the planet when he rushed for over 40 yards, looked like he was going to score a touchdown, gets taken down, and then fumbled on the next play, and then was just out. And now it's like, yep, this is just Javonte's backfield. I kind of wondered to what extent the fumble was a factor there. Like, was it just going to be Javonte's backfield, or maybe he would have earned a bigger role there?
So that was my take, where like, Miles, because like Javonte in that game did not look good to me. Not, or at least not all that impressive, certainly not explosive. I think he like lost a step from that injury, and I don't think he'll ever get it back. And then Miles ripped off that long run. I'm like, well, the Javonte experiment was fun while it lasted. And then Miles Sanders fumbled, and I'm like, well, the Miles experiment was fun while it lasted. Back to the Javonte show.
Yeah, just absolutely brutal there. I'm assuming Jaden Blue's still not going to be active. I guess we'll have to see on Sunday, but that's kind of my expectation. Any other? I kind of like Travis Etienne again. Looked awesome last week. Great workload. He's 5,700. I think a really good matchup with Cincinnati here. He stands out to me. So I guess I would like to hear your thoughts on Travis Etienne, and then talk about some of these other running backs here.
Yeah, I think Etienne's a really good play. 64% of the backfield XFP last week. Second most rushing yards of the week. They traded Tank Bigsby. Liam Cohen RBs are amazing for fantasy. I thought Travis Etienne was washed. I thought he just wasn't the same player after that Liz Frank. I know he did deal with injuries throughout most of last season, but no, it just looks like no. He's healthy, and he wasn't healthy last year. And this is a bottom 5 defense, so I think he's a really strong play.
Yep. Glad to hear that, because I also do. James Conner, I skipped over, but again, has that great matchup with Carolina. Last week, I was pretty surprised to see how much work Trey Benson got, because to me, the coach speak got worse throughout the course of the summer. It went from, we have a 1A, 1B to like, oh, he has to earn his spot. But then I sort of started buying into Trey Benson right at the end, because they went from some more kind of not awesome coach speak to sitting during the preseason game and being like, no, we know what we have in those guys. We like what we have in Trey Benson. And that to me was a pretty good indicator. Week 1, though, a surprise. The amount of work that he got relative to James Conner was pretty surprising to me in a game where they didn't run that much. So typically you'll see, some of these running backs will get more work if it's just a game where they run a lot of running plays, and then the starter needs some rest. But here James Conner only had 12 rushing attempts. Trey Benson had 8, so a pretty close split here. Are you interested in James Conner against Carolina? Do you think these splits hold? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, you see the 12 and the 8, but he also had 4 targets, 2 of which were designed, and he had the bulk of the work in the red zone. And so it equated to what, like 17.3 XFP? If you could, yeah. So that was top 10 on the week. So I think Trey Benson is scaring people a bit too much for what last year was like the nuts matchup, where you just jam in whoever's playing the Panthers defense, whichever running back's playing them. So I think he's underrated. He ultimately didn't make my write-up, so not a player I'm going to have much, if any, exposure to, but I think he's worth talking about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 6,600, so the price tag is up there, but just such a great matchup. And the ownership, I think, because people are a little bit afraid of the split there, even in the great matchup, I think, like, if not for that split, if he had gotten even a heavier rushing workload last week, we might be seeing 20% James Conner here. So I kind of like it at ownership. I think I will play some James Conner. Tony Pollard, like, always has the great workload without Tyjae Spears, but another tough matchup this week with the Rams. Are you going there at all?
Yeah, I wrote him up. He's a better value on FanDuel, but he's still very in play for DraftKings. He didn't have the best volume last week, but he did have the best usage, led in snap share, and he led in carry share. No other running back was really involved. Rams are a tough defense, but Broncos are probably the toughest in the league. So should be at least a better matchup than it was. And yeah, I think he's a strong value at that price point. Not one of my favorite plays, but he's in the mix.
I kind of want to talk about the Seattle situation just to hear your thoughts.
Oh, God.
I don't know that I really want to play either of them, but we've got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Those were splits that broke my heart.
Awful.
As somebody who played a ton of Kenneth Walker, and I know you're on the same page. 10.8 expected fantasy points for Kenneth Walker last week, 10.5 for Zach Charbonnet. So a true split last week. Charbonnet played 29 to Walker's 20 snaps. Do you think this could just be like a return from injury thing where they're working him slowly, or is this just how it is now?
Did you know Zach Charbonnet was named a week 2 captain?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I really just don't want to talk about this because it's too depressing to me, because I wrote up Kenneth Walker as an Exodia play, and it's looking almost like this call is as bad as the Cam Akers call was a couple of years back when it was the Kyron Williams show. I still like don't want to fully back off my priors. Maybe they're getting him fully. He needs to be fully healthy, or maybe it was just like a weird week 1. That play caller, that Clint Kubiak shit his pants, and Mike McDaniel or McDonald threw him under the bus for it. Let's see. Let's get a larger sample here. But from a DFS perspective, I don't play guys in a 50-50 committee. And last week it looked like a 50-50 committee. So not going to play them in DFS.
Want to hear your thoughts on the Broncos running backs, because last week we had kind of a gross split between J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and Tyler Bidet. Some of the coach speak from this week from Sean Payton is, it's really hard to get 3 guys involved. We really like to go with 2 running backs, but then he's talking up Tyler Bidet, being like, we need Tyler Bidet in some of these third down situations. Are they really going to be playing just a gross 3-headed split? Do you think we can play some J.K. Dobbins or R.J. Harvey here? What is your thoughts on the Broncos situation? Because again, I'm looking at schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed last year over the last 5 games of the year. 3rd best matchup for running backs. Seems really good. Actually, sorry, I have this wrong here, but they're like 8th best matchup for running backs. What are we doing? Are we playing any Broncos this week?
Yeah, I just want to say that's like one of the best bits in football. Sean Payton being like, Marvin Mims really needs more snaps. I don't know what, we had a 3-headed monster. I don't know. We should really go with a 2-headed because that's where I've had all my yeah. And then it just, nothing changes. It's just like you're the one in charge of playing time. I'm not going to chase anything just because I think it's still like at least a 2-way committee. It'll be the RJ Harvey show, hopefully at some point, but week 2 is probably a little bit optimistic. If you're going to play one running back, I think it's Harvey just because he's the more talented one. And he looked great week 1. He maybe he's deserving of more usage already, but I just think there's better running back plays this week.
I think I might do it. It's one that's probably too fancy. Like, it's probably one of those Neil mistakes in week 2 where it's like, you don't really need to go that fancy, but I can't help myself. I think I can't help myself. I'm going to play a little bit of RJ Harvey, maybe a few shares of J.K. Dobbins also, just because of the matchup. And they have such a strong offensive line. I could just see them like just running it down the Colts' throats. So I think I'm going to play some of it for that reason, but definitely, not super thrilled with the split right now, which is why I'm like, I might play 2 of them and just kind of see how it plays out. But yeah, it's not my favorite situation.
Apparently, Adam Schefter just stole a tweet from me. I have a bunch of people tagging Adam Schefter, yelling at him for not giving me credit. Yeah, I wanted to say that's always been my issue, especially early in the year, is going too fancy for my own good. So, if you're listening at home, maybe keep that in mind for when I'm talking up Mac Jones or I don't know who else, but yeah, you tend not to need to go too fancy. And that's maybe a blind spot I have, especially early in the year.
I don't think Mac Jones is too fancy. Spencer Rattler, though, I think
Yeah,
that might apply too. That'd be the better application there.
Well, I'm allowed one Galaxy brain play on this show.
This is outside the box, Scott. You can have as many Galaxy brain plays as you want on this show. That's what we do. That's what we do here. I do want, because Steven brought it up, says thoughts on Dylan Sampson. Baltimore not so good with pass catching backs. That's also now we're going to get Quinshon Judkins back for this game. I was not expecting that, so I don't love that. But do we think that Dylan Sampson still has significant workload here? Worth playing?
I'm not going to go there. Too many things up in the air. And again, it's like, to me, just a low upside committee backfield. But hey, if he gets 10 targets again,
it's kind of where I'm at too.
Oh, yeah.
So they talked about in New England potentially changing up the split for the backfield. Any interest in Trevion Henderson against Miami? Can't even find him.
Yeah, I think he at that ownership. I think that's great. Like, it's a shame the Dynasty Bros don't play DFS and there's like zero overlap, but like the Dynasty Bros would have 99% exposure. This guy looked so incredibly dynamic in college. He looked almost like a mini Jahmyr Gibbs, and there's positive coach speak talking him up. Miami is the worst secondary in football, really good or much better defensive line. So it's like a premier pass funnel, which is partly why I love Drake May this week. And Ramondre really struggled last week. So it makes sense. Just jack up Trevion Henderson's usage, have him running routes. According to Patriots beat writers, this was the best deep threat on the team as a running back. Like, how crazy. And so that speaks to his upside. I said in August, I'm like, Trevion Henderson to me just like looks like a guy who's going to be 7K on DraftKings every single week. And I'm never going to write him up because he's, low end RB2 by XFP per game, but he just like breaks every fifth slate. And so, why not throw a dart, take a chance when he's 2%?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a strong call. A player that I was like already considering playing, and then when they talk about changing the split, I'm like, all right, like who knows? Maybe he gets a great workload here, and he's already that 7K player that you're talking about.
Yeah, and again, early in the season, I'm not going to have like amazing calls based on our schematic matchups and our data that ETR doesn't have, Stochastic doesn't have. Like, we're going to get that edge, but that's coming week 5. Like, the first 4 weeks of the season, like, you could just bro out on calls like this and just be like, yeah, I don't know. I think Trevion Henderson is good. And I think he's going to smash this week because the coaches are saying he's going to get more work. So, and the work was like, honestly, maybe better than I expected last week.
Yeah. For the first game, not bad for his first game of his career. Yeah, I think that's definitely a call worth paying attention to. I'll play some for sure. Any other running backs? I mean, you talked about Breece Hall already. When we talked about quarterbacks, do you have any additional thoughts there? You like him though?
No, I'm tailing Rich Rebar and JM to win, who were excellent analysts, but it looks like a good matchup to me. Like, I don't know, it's still the Jets. It's still a committee. A guy ran 7 routes last week, but I see the upside for sure.
Any Kamara?
He looked great. He looked incredible. He looked like 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he earned a bigger workload, in which case you might want him.
If the coaches didn't shit on him every chance they got all offseason, I would have had a ton of redraft exposure to him. But
yeah. Any Kamara here?
Probably not. I mean, I could see it. I'm going to stack up this game, and I'm probably not going to have Kamara. I was disappointed by his usage, but maybe it was just week 1, or maybe it was I don't know. Seems like a great running back for Kellen Moore, but it was kind of turned off by that committee in week 1.
Yeah. I don't see anybody else here that I want to play. Do you have any other names that you want to throw out?
No,
sort by fantasy points.
I didn't.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to wide receivers. Do you need to take a break, Scott? Or should we power through? All right. Yeah. Wide receivers by ownership at the top, it is Puka Nacua. Now he fits your if we're going to play a Rams player on every slate, he fits that flow chart. Puka Nacua at 19%, 7,600. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think if God turned off injuries, it's either Puka or CMC at the 101. And it's like such that if I had the 112 and the 201, I'd trade both of those picks to try and get one of those two guys. It's really just like, can Stafford stay healthy? Can Puka stay healthy? Last year, he broke the fantasy points data record for XFP per route run. This year, his usage volume looks even better. Looks even more incredible. Tennessee has an underrated front seven. You kind of worry about Stafford staying upright with that back and whatnot, but I think last week you see Puka peppered with a lot of the short area stuff. So I love him. I think he's an amazing play. I'm going to have a lot of him. I kind of don't care about the ownership. Not the best play at the wide receiver position, which we'll get to, but he's up there for sure.
All right. I'm excited to hear the best play. But first I want to move down to who I assume is not the best play. Hollywood Brown, 5,200, was peppered with targets, 14 targets last week. And he's only 5,200, 18% ownership though, against a tough Philadelphia defense. How do you feel about Hollywood Brown?
Yeah. So you're going to play him in cash. Dude had 16 targets last week. Of course you're going to play him in cash. But when you're talking about 18% ownership and it's Hollywood Brown, when was the last time he had a score that mattered in DFS? A really long time ago. And so you heard on I shit all over Xavier Worthy all off season, but I might've got lucky there. You heard from the broadcast, the plan week 1 was to just force feed Worthy the ball. They weren't expecting to be without him. He gets hurt in the third play. And so what do? They just move Hollywood Brown into that slot, into that Xavier Worthy role, formerly the Rashee Rice role. But the thing is, last year, it was Travis Kelce in that role. With Rashee Rice, he had like a 10% target share. Without Rashee Rice, it was a 28% target. It just skyrocketed. And so, now that they have like multiple days to prepare to be without Xavier Worthy, maybe it's Travis Kelce stepping back into that Rashee Rice role. So that's a way to play it. I will say, like, they're up against the Eagles. This is a Super Bowl rematch. This could be a shootout. Two elite run defenses. The ball has to go somewhere. And I kind of just don't want to play Hollywood because he's Hollywood, and I don't want to play Travis Kelce because he's old and I think he's washed. And I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm probably coming under on Hollywood.
I think I probably am too. I was getting a fair amount in the Sims, so I guess I will mention that he simmed out pretty well. 18%. I'm definitely going to have some, so I probably don't come in under 10%. Probably in this range. So I don't have a strong take. I guess I don't want Hollywood to completely ruin the slate for me.
He had 100 yards last week. I know he had 16 target, but if like 95 yards.
I actually don't know what his final stat line was. I can pull up.
Receiving. 99 yards. So you just missed that bonus,
right.
But he did have 10 catches. So, and so if you fade him and he gets 19.9 fantasy points again, that's a good play at that ownership.
Yeah, I mean at 5,200, certainly a strong play. I would assume
I'm saying that's a good fade.
Good fade.
19.9 fantasy points at 5,200.
Yeah,
when he's 18% owned, you just don't want him to kill you. And I don't think he has had to have it upside.
Yeah, I mean at 19.9, like I'd be fine having him in my lineup, but I also wouldn't be like devastated if I did not have him. So yeah, that's hopefully he does about that because I'm probably going to try to be around the field, maybe a little bit under though. Jamar Chase, 17% owned. We talked about Joe Burrow already, so I guess we already talked about all the quarterbacks. We can kind of go quickly through some of the wide receivers more specifically, but Jamar Chase, do you like him? He's 8,100, 17% owned.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. Is just Jamar Chase has never been good against the Browns, and he said
Yeah.
Denzel Ward was the toughest cornerback he's ever faced. But if you exclude games against the Browns, he averages 28 DraftKings fantasy points per game over his last 13, 39.3 in the top 50% of those games. So he's just a guy you need exposure to every single week because of that massive, immense slate wrecking upside. And he also gets it's the highest over under of the week. It was a secondary that was awful last year. And it's a zone heavy matchup, which really typically gives him the edge over a T Higgins. So yeah, Puka, Jamar Chase, really good plays. CeeDee Lamb, also really good play.
So then do you not like T Higgins at 15% owned 6,100 because it's a better matchup?
Yeah, I like him
Jamar Chase?
comparatively, less than Chase.
But will you have some double stacks? Will you be double stacking Burrow at all with those two?
Yeah, I'll probably have that somewhere.
Okay. Pearsall, you already talked about liking him with Mac Jones.
Yeah, I just wanted to, elaborate a little bit. Do you remember what happened the last time the 49ers were without both George Kittle and Deebo Samuel?
No.
It only happened once over the last, I don't know how many years, but it was the game that Juwan Jennings scored 49.3 DraftKings fantasy points. Might have been the most ever by a 49ers wide receiver. They had Terrell Owens, they had Jerry Rice, and it might have been Juwan. And so after Kittle went down last week, after Juwan went down last week, Pearsall had a 50% first read target share. He looked really good. Juwan, we don't know what kind of shape he's in. He's banged up, missed a ton of training camp. So I really like Pearsall. I see, more slate wrecking potential than for Hollywood Brown, I think.
All right. Yeah, no, I like that call. I'm into Pearsall. I think I'll probably be close to this 15%. I don't think it's going to be like a huge stand for me. You already said you like CeeDee Lamb. What about George Pickens? So let's just talk about the Dallas guys. So CeeDee Lamb is 7,800 coming in at 15% ownership. George Pickens quite a bit less, coming in at 3% owned at 5,800. How much do you like either, both of them? You're going to be double stacking. How you playing the Dallas receivers?
Yeah, I wrote up Pickens as a contrarian option. He wasn't super productive in week one, and the volume wasn't great, but the usage was really good. So he was, throughout his career, is really more of like a jump ball possession guy, a deep threat. In college, I actually really liked his tape on shorter routes, but we haven't really seen any of that in the pros. Dynamic after the catch, but in week one with the Cowboys, his horizontal route rate, I think, doubled. His intermediate route rate doubled. Those are the money routes. Those are the really profitable routes from a fantasy perspective. I wrote up Pickens as a contrarian play. If I didn't delete it from the slate breakdown, I meant to. I just kind of think CeeDee Brown's the guy. It's a perfect schematic matchup for both of them. But just looking at Lamb last week, the 38% target share, the 54% yardage market share. I think it's more just like Pickens opening things up for Lamb, and he's the clear wide receiver one rather than a 1A, 1B sort of thing. We can't say that for certain. It's too early in the year.
Right.
But that would be my lean, is just play CD.
Okay. I mean,
unless you're doing DAC doubles, and you could do DAC doubles.
Yeah, and we'll be doing that in one of our lineups at the end of the show. All right, but that's
he's a great big play guy, but yeah, I would save that for DAC doubles.
Yeah. JSN going up against Pittsburgh without Joey Porter Jr. JSN projected for 15% ownership at 6,000. How much do you like JSN here?
Yeah, I think that's my favorite wide receiver play of the week. Probably by a margin. He just looks like Puka 2 to me. Puka 2.0. Last week, 67% first read target share, 83% yardage market share. It was insane volume. Usage was great. Again, ton of horizontal routes, ton of intermediate routes, a ton of 2 wide receiver sets, which means there's less target competition. Everything you kind of wanted to see was there. And he's only 6K for Puka 2.0. Joey Porter Jr. is confirmed out. I might hit the lock button for tournaments. I'm strongly considering it. Yeah.
All right.
And there was the quote from Sam Darnold after the game. It was like, hey, what happened there? It's like, well, that's what the defense gave us, but it's also what the offense, called for heading into the game. I'm sure there's going to be weeks where it's like where Cooper Kupp is more involved, but that's what we did and it worked. And I love JSN and whatever. And this
I had not looked at this target share 56.5%.
I know, dude. So like a Cooper Kupp, I think is like turbo washed. I mean, like that. I kept flirting with the idea that Cooper Kupp was like some massive value in best ball. My rankings didn't reflect that, but I kept flirting with that idea because no one else was making it. And all that really did was just keep me from writing up JSN as an Exodia.
Yeah, that was one of those where you tweeted out about Cooper Kupp and how good he was for most of the year last year. And then we DM'd and you were like, yeah, but he's probably still washed. I was like, should I be buying Cooper Kupp? And you're like, no, he's probably still washed. Yeah. And,
it's just, you got to think about those range of outcomes. And unfortunately that tweet cost me a lot more JSN. And like that's looking like one of the best picks he could have made.
Yeah. I mean, through 1 week, so we'll see if it holds, but yeah, definitely very promising.
There's just like nothing more you could have hoped, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. If you drafted JSN, you're pretty pleased with it right now. BTJ against Cincinnati, Travis Hunter against Cincinnati. How much interest do you have in the Jags receivers? And then somebody else brought up De'Ami Brown. Do you have any interest there?
Yeah, both of their usage volume was really good for Travis Hunter, BTJ. It was just awful inaccuracy from Trevor Lawrence. I think I like Travis Hunter more, just because we got confirmation he was in the Chris Godwin role, that we were all like, that seems to be the more valuable of the roles in the Liam Cohen offense and a very valuable one overall. And he's cheaper. Yeah, I wasn't like, really high up on my list, but I'm sure he is for Jake.
Travis Hunter is. Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, 26% target share last week. We're not concerned about them saying they're going to use him more on defense. I don't think that comes at the expense of offensive reps. Okay. Yeah. Same page there. All right, let me see who else do we want to talk about. Sounded like you are not super high on Malik Neighbors this week. You just don't think Russ has it. 7,100. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I really do not like this spot. What does Matt Eberflus do? He sells out to stop the opposing team's number one receiver. What did he do last week? He held AJ Brown to one target. And like, why wouldn't you do that against the Giants who have absolutely nothing else? So cloud coverage on Neighbors, Russell Wilson, awful. And what do you get? You get Wan'Dale Robinson, spam, BS, worst EPA per reception in the league, tons of catches, not a lot of first downs. And that's my concern. I will say Jake Tribby's counter argument to this was excellent, which was just like, Scott, you told me 2 days ago you think Malik Neighbors is more talented than Justin Jefferson. And you look at XFP last week, it was CMC 30 XFP, like one of the most in any game in fantasy points data history. It was Malik Neighbors 28, Drake London 27, and then no other player with more than 21 or whatever it is. And so like fading that sort of volume for an insanely talented player is probably foolish. Click the X button. Let's see where he ranked overall.
Oh, that's just wide receivers. So he was second among wide. Oh no, that's Debo through 2 games. It's 30 points.
Yeah. So if you do XFP per game, that fixes it. Or you could hit position and add running back. But yeah, bottom line is just volume amazing for a super talented guy. I do think Eberflus is a ceiling limiting matchup, but the ownership isn't high enough to, warrant a full fade or anything along those lines.
Yeah. So it's through 2 games. That's Debo, Christian McCaffrey, like you said, XFP per game. McCaffrey 30.1, Malik Neighbors 28.5. The other thing that I noticed there, Scott, is that Wan'Dale Robinson had 18 expected fantasy points last week, and now we're expecting the defense to sell out to stop Malik Neighbors. So I have to imagine that you think that Wandale Robinson is an absolute smash this week.
This is my least favorite player in football. This is my least favorite player in fantasy football and in DFS. It's a guy who gets 10 targets every week and does nothing with him, does not have ceiling outcomes for DFS. Dead last in EPA per catch last year. First in third down targets and like 30th in first downs on third down targets. Like, absolutely hate the guy. I think my exact words were, I would rather have $1 million stolen from me than win $1 million with Wandale Robinson on that lineup. But if there was ever a spot to play him, it would be, I think, against a Matt Eberflus defense that has cloud coverage on Malik Neighbors. And I will say that 18 XFP is like really high for Wandale. You know, despite a ton of targets, he was always a lower XFP guy because it was like negative ADOT targets. And so that was pretty good for him. He is a little banged up, but I didn't write him up, but it would make sense for him to do well in this game. So if you're a Wandale guy who plays Wandale, you can play him this week.
I'll probably play a little bit of Wandale. Darius Slayton also out. So maybe that helps something. Right. I don't know. All right. Moving down. I mean, Zay Flowers. I mean, I guess we need to talk about Zay Flowers after he led the all wide receivers in fantasy points last week. You playing him against Cleveland?
Bro, I got Evan Silva coming for my head.
Do you know why is that? No.
So we did a live draft on FFPC, me and Theo, and then Evan, Ben Gretsch, and Mike Leone were drafting right next to us. And like, I think it's hilarious. So I start like trash talking Evan Silva. I'm texting him. He takes Zay Flowers, and I just text back Zay Flowers ... yikes, and just to mess with him. And so on his ETR show, he brought that up, and he was just kind of, you know, playfully trashing me. And then he called me afterwards. He was like, "Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I talked about you on the show. It was all in good fun. I hope that." And I'm like, "No, dude, of course, Silva. I love you. Like, this is what I want. Like, this is so much fun for me." But yeah, dude. Oh, and our team finished dead last in points, and his team finished first in points in week 1. So rightfully talking some shit. Good for you, Evan Silva. Yeah, he looked incredible. This is always a player I was lower on. From a redraft perspective, I was low on because it's like, hey, Lamar Jackson had 16 more passing touchdowns than he had in any of the past 3 seasons. And Zay Flowers was still mid. From a DFS standpoint, actually, what did he do? He would just like randomly explode every 4th game and then would just kind of be worthless the rest of the time. So I wrote him up every week just because, you know, he was that sort of roller coaster, you know, spike play guy that really moves the needles for DFS. And a rule in week 2 is you never play the guys who went off in week 1. But this ownership really isn't that bad. And I also think it makes sense for Zay Flowers for this usage to maybe stick another week because Isaiah Likely's out. And so there's some redundancy and overlap to their roles where it makes sense for Zay Flowers to be that guy getting those design targets. And it was really like insane, amazing volume and usage. And the matchup's very similar with the Browns. We know the Bills sell out to stop the deep ball. The Ravens do a little bit. The Browns do a little bit of that. And the schematic matchup is also ideal for Zay Flowers. So I think he's a good play. Really cash play on FanDuel. I wouldn't fault anyone for playing him here.
Yeah. Price came up a little bit, but yeah, still just 14% owned. Seems all right to me. Calvin Ridley not having to face Pat Surtain this week, but now facing another tough defense in the Rams. He's 4,900 with the rookie quarterback. You playing any Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I think he's a great play. I think he's one of the best values on the slate, and he's not drawing, you know, cash levels of ownership. You saw 8 targets last week. Didn't do anything with it, but that's great. That's awesome. That's when you have Patrick Surtain shadowing you, that's a huge win. And yeah, so we didn't play him last week. He wasn't really on our radar. Why? Because Patrick Surtain is the best defensive player in the world. So this week I'm expecting really good volume, more production. all throughout the offseason, Cam Ward, what was he saying? He was saying Calvin Ridley is the best player in football. I understand the assignment. I'm just going to get him the ball. Easton Freeze, Tennessee's best beat writer, was projecting like 200 targets for Calvin Ridley in the preseason with Cam Ward. Ridley averaged 7.14 yards per route run. So, and last year he led the league in air yards. What does that suggest? Is good upside for DFS tournaments, even if there's a little bit of volatility there. So I think that's a good play.
What about, I looked at XFP there for a second, and Ayamanor actually had more last week than Ridley. And there's been a little bit of buzz.
That just kind of happens every time, you
with
face.
Sertan.
Yeah.
So you're not playing?
Might be in the, I think he is in the write-up because he's cheap. I just strongly prefer Ridley, but I will say that was Brett Whitefield's wide receiver 3
of this draft class.
Yeah. And per sources, Ayamanor fell due to medical red flags, but the Titans were a lot higher on him as a prospect than his draft grade suggested. So he's in play. I think I like Tyquan Thornton more, if I'm being honest, if we want to chase a 3K guy, but
yeah, let's talk Tyquan Thornton. He's not somebody that's been on my radar at all.
Well, yeah, that's another DFB favorite. Everyone thought that was the biggest reach of the draft, but he was one of my darlings of that draft class. He's one of the fastest players in football. Xavier Worthy, faster, but also like one of the worst, at least last year and in college, one of the worst players on tape in terms of tracking deep balls. It's possible, like Tyquan is maybe even better. Like, as crazy as that sounds, it's just, not as fast, but that's not the most important thing when it comes to being good at catching the deep ball. And what did the Chiefs do? Is all offseason they talked about wanting to be better at that. And so I just see like 2.5 deep targets for Tyquan Thornton. So maybe he catches 2 of those or 1 of those and he houses it. So he's fine at 3,600 if you need the salary space.
All right, I like that as a off the wall kind of call. DK Metcalf, do we think he's going to continue to just get peppered by Aaron Rodgers? He's 5,900. Do you like him? Tough matchup with Seattle. Any interest there?
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's that tough. I think it's a lot easier than last week. That's a narrative, is that Aaron Rodgers just hyper targets his BFF. We've seen that all throughout his career, and Rodgers and DK were practicing together before either of them were on the Steelers. And it's also like Aaron Rodgers is the most petty person in football. And so, Metcalf going against his old team, does he want him to have a big game? Probably. Metcalf, I thought, was great in week 1. I was not expecting a Sauce Gardner shadow. Now it's like Patrick Surtain's shadow is 1, Sauce Gardner shadow is 2, and like no one else really, in terms of just shutting down wide receiver 1s. So everything he did last week was encouraging to me. This week's matchup, I think, is a lot better. Seahawks could be without Devon Witherspoon. Reek Woolen might not even be starting this week, according to the head coach. So, yeah, I think he's a pretty good play.
Yeah, I think that seems solid. So speaking of that, the coverage concerns, the shadowing concerns, you talked about this last night. Keon Coleman, we're expecting to be shadowed by Sauce Gardner. You've got it in the wide receiver cornerbacks matchup report as a shadow situation. Does that scare you off of Keon Coleman, whose usage looked really strong week 1? And then does it lead you to any other Bills receivers?
Yeah, maybe this is a mistake, but Keon Coleman didn't win a single route last week, and his touchdown came on a deflected pass, and he has a brutal cornerback matchup. I would rather play Josh Palmer personally.
Is Khalil Shakir in play?
Yes, but everything about the matchup would tilt more for Palmer to me, and also more upside. Just Shakir is always like, he'll hit 3x value, but he's not going to win you a tournament.
Sure. I'm thinking about just opening it up to you at this point.
We got a lot of names by that.
All right, yeah, let's just do that then. Let's open it up to who do you like here?
Devonta Smith, He's 1K more than AJ Brown. Oh, so I got trashed all week on social media. I got owned by Titans fans telling me to watch the game. And then AJ Brown like threw shade at my tweet where I was like, hey, I think this guy's hurt. This is his worst separation game ever. And AJ Brown on the short Jordan Schultz podcast, son of Howard Schultz, Starbucks CEO, said, hey, I saw those tweets. Those tweets were wrong. What really happened was I had 0 reps against man coverage, which was true. And the defense was selling out to stop me, which was true. Like I said, Eberflus cloud coverage. So I'll take the L there, AJ Brown. Although he's also like historically been so much better against man than zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Maybe AJ Brown, just comes back and smashes, especially if he's lobbing his BFF Jalen Hurts for more targets. But historically, it's Devonta Smith who outperforms him when Dallas Goedert's out. There's some nuance here is like where, the difference in target share and targets per route run doesn't really change. It's just Devonta's way more productive. And so maybe that's just like noise. But it is all we really have. So I'm going to chase it. It's also Devonta Smith outplayed AJ Brown in the Super Bowl last year. He also has the way better matchup against Shamari Connor in the slot. So I like Devonta Smith over AJ Brown, who also, by the way, might just be lying. It might still be hurt.
Sure.
Probably not. But
my hope is that he's super vengeful and he wants vengeance on Scott Barrett for saying that he's hurt.
Maybe that's
and so AJ Brown is going to come out and crush.
Maybe that's what it
is there a way to in the fantasy suite? Can I look up how they do without Dallas Goedert in the fantasy in the data suite somewhere, or is that
so that's the big reason why we launched this AI product.
Oh, okay.
So if you're an all-in user, you can gain access to it. It's still in beta, but we were supposed to loop in our play-by-play feed, and we're just kind of short-staffed on dev power, and so hopefully this time next year we'll have that, maybe even sooner, where you can ask it questions like how does the Eagles wide receivers do without Dallas Goedert, and it'll give you their EPA per play. It'll give your fantasy points per route run, any stat you want to look at. But we just don't have that right now.
Gotcha. But you've got AI. Nice. All right. Who else? Who else do you like?
Cortland Sutton is another one. And I haven't heard anyone talk about him this week. Last week was Bo Nix's worst game of his career. And Cortland Sutton still scored 18.1 fantasy points over his last 11 games, 8.7 targets per game, 18.1 fantasy points per game. No one's talking about him. He's exceeded 16 fantasy points in 73% of those games. So 16, 73%, 18.1. What does that tell you? Is he's really more of like a high floor guy than a ceiling play. But then again, Charvarius Ward is out. His direct backup, Jalen Jones, is out. Not a guy you're going to miss on, but I think it is fair to quibble with his upside. Another wide receiver, Chris Olave, 4,900. You could also play Rashid Shaheed, but as the token Rashid Shaheed whisperer, I think it's more of a Chris Olave game, or at least just like at their varying price points. My stronger lean is Chris Olave. He's a better play than 6% suggests, by the way. He spent some plays in the blue medical tent last week, but still finished 5th among all players and targets. I think the quarterback sucks, but I think Kellen Moore's awesome for fantasy, for XFP. He's kind of like fallen under the radar from a best ball perspective. Career derailed by injuries, bad quarterback play, but he's exceeded 80 yards in each of his last 4 complete games. Only full complete game with Spencer Rattler, 14 targets, 107 yards. So I think he's falling through the cracks a little bit, and I don't think that's warranted.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. And for best ball, it's like you're kind of afraid of like the concussions was part of it. Like he's going to miss part of the season, but I think he still has kind of some of that stink on him that like carries over into DFS, where it's like people are nervous about injuries, but like if he's entering the game healthy, he's probably going to finish the game. Is like the likeliest outcome. So I like the call. You said that you had some interest in Joe Flacco. Where do you come down on his pass catchers?
Yeah, I like Tillman a little bit more, but I'm not. That's like a very Ryan Heath conviction call.
Yeah.
That he thinks, Tillman's the real wide receiver one. I think more than anything to me, it's just like there isn't an alpha wide receiver one. So I don't actually really love either guy so much. I mean, I wrote Tillman up, but
worth noting, more expected fantasy points last week for Jerry Jeudy than Tillman. Tillman scored the touchdown.
Yeah. But
it's worth something. He ran more routes, same number of targets, pretty close there. All right. Did you have any other receivers?
I have a lot more. Yeah. Like I said, this is, or maybe I didn't say it, but it feels like an MME week to me, or at least for me, it's going to be I'm going to make a lot of lineups and I might not have as condensed ownership as I typically have, but Tyreek Hill, I can't give it up. I'm just like, I don't care how bad it makes me look. It's Tyreek freaking Hill. And, no one really wants to play him. The stat I mentioned last week on this show was in career games where Tua is under center, he averages 31 DK fantasy points per game, and the top 50% of those, maybe it no longer feels like a coin flip for a 30 burger, but it's still like better odds than I think the field is going to tell us based on ownership, especially against a Patriots defense that looked awful in week 1 and will be without Christian Gonzalez, their top cornerback. And like the underlying usage too, but before Tua came out of that game is, I think there's a good chance the Tyreek Hill is just back to a 50% first read target share because nothing else is working. The guy is causing headaches on the sideline. Yeah. Maybe he rips his shirt off and pulls in Antonio Brown in the third quarter, but he could also just, 50% first read target share and go nuts.
Yeah. No, Tyreek definitely.
It's really just
I'd be afraid to fade.
It's not the most likely outcome that's as important as the most impactful outcome. And, you're talking about had to have it scores. Tyreek is way higher than his point per dollar. So.
Yeah, on the what do you win when you win scale, he's pretty high. You could win quite a bit. All right, keep throwing names at me because you've got a bunch, so I'm just going to let you do it.
Romo Dunze is another one. Jake thinks it's closer between Romo Dunze and DJ Moore than I do, but so I wrote up both, but my lean was Romo Dunze. He had the better volume. I think he had the better role, and both have a really good schematic matchup. So 4,800 for Romo Dunze. I think that's pretty good. I think Devontae Adams, I brought it up earlier. It looks like he's in the Cooper Kupp role. But it looks like even more valuable than that. Because Adams looks less washed than Cooper Kupp was a season ago. And horizontal route rate way up, intermediate route rate way up. Adams actually projects better than Puka for us at much lower ownership. If you just look at the point per dollar, I don't know. Oh, actually they're neck and neck now. Yeah, so right, they're tied. They're tied. Yep. So things changed a little bit, but so he's worth mentioning. To me, it's not as close. I like Puka more, but certainly Adams is a guy to get exposure to. And then fringe guys to consider: Alec Ayomanor, Tyquan Thornton, Cedric Tillman, Jawan Jennings, George Pickens. But if you want me to find a low-owned wide receiver I really like, it's Kayshon Boutte.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Kayshon Boutte. I mean, he great game last week, and then he was talking like was he a first-round receiver? I forget what the quote was, but he was talking himself up after the game as he feels he's been slept on a little bit throughout his career. What is his? Let's see. Projected for, he's 4,500 projected for 2% ownership. Okay.
So Keishon Booty, the ass puns write themselves. So that's great. The other component to it of it is he's my new Justin Ross.
Ooh, that's fun.
Because I wrote it up this way from a dynasty perspective, is like the same thing as Justin Ross, where it's like, this is a guaranteed first round wide receiver. This is a top 15 pick. He looks incredible. And like, that's one of the rarest things to find in fantasy. That's what we're desperately looking for, is these difference makers who have a level of upside that's different from everyone else. And so he was that in LSU, just like with Justin Ross, derailed by a horrific injury, just like Justin Ross. You know, the pro day numbers were like awful, where it's like, this guy doesn't even belong in the NFL, and like clearly something happened. But the injury wasn't as career altering than Keishon Booty. I mean, like the NFL was really down on him, but there was still that glimmer of hope. He could maybe in an extra year or two be a little bit more like who he was. And so you just look at the numbers. Week 1 clearly looked like the wide receiver one. Stephon Diggs still working his way back, had like a 55% route share. And look at Keishon Booty's last 4 games: 19.3, 27.7, 6.8, 20.5 DraftKings fantasy points. So he's kind of been the wide receiver one and been productive for a while. It's an excellent matchup. He's only 4,500. He's only drawing 2% ownership. So yeah, I don't know. We come up with a good pun here, but I can't think of any right off the bat. But Keishon Booty, one of my favorite low-owned plays.
Yeah, I think the Astros just kind of write themselves. We don't really need to work on it. People can just make the jokes as they see fit. Also, the only Patriots receiver that I did not draft a ton of in best ball. So RIP my best ball bags. Any other receivers you want to throw? I've sorted it by fantasy points per dollar.
I hate talking about too many. I really try and limit my pool, but it's just one of those weeks.
Did you have another one in mind, or
no?
All right, then we will move on at this point. We've talked about enough receivers. We're trying to get this thing done in under 2 hours. We're on to tight ends. I will sort by ownership again. Top of ownership, you have kind of the extremes. You've got Trey McBride at the top against Carolina, projected for 18% ownership at $6,000 salary. And then if you want to pay down, you have Harold Fannin, 3,100, projected for 13% ownership. Kind of makes sense. I think it makes sense that these two are going to get the most ownership. Do you like them as plays this week, or are you fading?
I do like them, but I do also try and make a point to just not play the chalkiest tight end.
Yeah.
I think this is probably a fine week to do that. Harold Fannin, I mean, like, there's a chance he's just like this year's Isaiah Likely, and that, you know, the week 1 usage volume production was an aberration and it's not going to continue. But when you're looking at 3,100 and like the upside that he's just, you know, the number 3 wide receiver with a tight end designation, makes him a good play. I think these are clearly your 2 cash tight ends of the week. The argument for Trey McBride is target share in week 1 was awesome. It was even higher than it was last year when he finished top 7 among all players. Like I said, since that bye week, Arizona has been one of the top 6 most pass heavy offenses in football. And in that stretch, you have Trey McBride averaging 11.4 targets per game. That's more than any other receiver. 82 yards per game. That's, you know, above T. Higgins. It's above Drake London. That's really insane. And now he has a picture perfect schematic matchup. For tournaments, you could say he doesn't score touchdowns. You don't want him. I kind of don't think that's real. I think it's just like a matter of time before that regresses, even though dating back to college, it never has.
I think high school, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think Davis looked it up on a stream once, and it was like he did not score touchdowns like his senior year of high school.
That's amazing. Dude is allergic to the red zone, but outside of that, a baller, freaking awesome. Like, just call him a slot receiver and he's still elite. And so, yeah, but there are a lot of lower owned tight ends I'm really excited about. And it's not Travis Kelce. I just can't get aboard on that price point, but we could see him just step into the Rashee Rice role like last year. But I wrote him up and I ultimately deleted it. It's not Jake Ferguson in a single high heavy matchup that is perfect for George Pickens and perfect for CeeDee Lamb and not perfect for him. but it is those next 4 tight ends by a lot.
So it's these 4: Tyler Warren, Sam Laporta, Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson. Tyler Warren, that's looking bad for me also. The fade in best ball. He was so expensive. It was so hard to get to Tyler Warren. Now he at least has a tough matchup, so it's not like an awesome spot for him. But man, he looked like a dog in week 1.
Yeah, that to be fair, it was for sure a tight end target for me, and wrote him up. But my take was like, I don't know that he should be going 2 rounds above Colston Loveland, so I'd rather Loveland at the value. And like a big concern was the redundancy to Josh Downs, and Josh Downs being the target hog. In week 1, it was Josh Downs 50% route share, 4% first read target share. Is Tyler Warren the clear focal point of the offense? Maybe Downs is still working his way back from that injury. But dude, Tyler Warren's a dog. He looks incredible. He looks awesome. It really could be this year's Brock Bowers. Team high 9 targets, position high 31% target share, 7 for 40 for 76. Could have done really whatever he wanted. The team came out and basically said as much as like, we could have just hammered that all day and shoved it down their throats. And so you have Patrick Surtain probably shadowing Michael Pittman. It's not a lock, but I think it's probably the case. I've chased this before, and it's still like Denver's good against tight ends. Like even focus, even add in the extra volume because of the Surtain shadow. This is still a really good defense against tight ends, but I don't know. I think the volume's there. I think he's a super talented player. I really like Tyler Warren.
One thing that I did not think was in the range of outcomes throughout the offseason was Josh Downs getting less usage this year. Like I like or getting less like route participation. Like I did not see that with Josh Downs as a possibility. He's been so good. Why would the team use him less?
I thought that's why they drafted Tyler Warren, so they could just live in 11 personnel. And you see way more 12 personnel. Downs just, again, I think that's probably due to the injury, and that probably comes up. But maybe it doesn't week 2. Like,
yeah, might
maybe
take a
you
little
just
while.
force feed Tyler Warren again, because the dude is awesome. That was the stats I had. So like in February, I wrote up the rookie tight ends, and I was saying this is like one of the best classes ever, and like no one's talking about it as such. And I had Tyler Warren as a elite prospect. I had Harold Fannin above Colston Loveland as an elite prospect, and Loveland as an elite prospect. The stat I had was, so Warren holds the record for most yards from scrimmage from a Power 5 tight end ever. And then Harold Fannin holds it for any FBS tight end ever. And so both of them had an amazing week 1. Wasn't really all that surprising to me. So, and it's just, Fannin more highly owned than Warren. Well, actually, I mean, it's close. Last I looked, it was, maybe it was too early in the week, or it was a different site, but I was expecting Fannin to be a lot higher than 13%, to be honest.
Yeah, not crazy high. I do want to, before we move on to the other tight ends, Cobra says senior year McBride had 1 touchdown in 6 games, but he scored 20 in the 2 years before that. I'm not sure if he's referring to high school or college there. I was trying to look up his high school stats here, but that is a good note. So he struggled.
I think that's high school. Maybe like a gypsy cursed him or something.
Yeah. So he can score touchdowns just for some reason.
Something.
Yeah. Sam Laporta, Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson notes.
Yeah, nice pull, Cobra. Appreciate that. Love it when the chat helps out with dig stats.
Yeah, that's great. Sam Laporta?
Oh, yeah. So this was a big like redraft argument or bet. Was Laporta was just hurt all of last year. He came into week 1 hurt. He picked up another ankle injury week 3. And he was hurt, and it took him a while to get healthy. But at the tail end of the year, he was kind of balling out. He, over his last 7 games now, he averages 7.7 targets, 15.2 fantasy points per game. Those are Kittle, Bowers, McBride sort of numbers. Week 1, 9 targets, 6 catches, 79 yards. You heard the OC talking about wanting to get Laporta more involved than he was under Ben Johnson. And he's $1,200 cheaper than McBride. So he's for sure in play. He's a pretty good play.
I like it. Hunter Henry, you talked about, is this your favorite stacking? We actually didn't really get into it. I guess you talked about Boudet and Trevor Henderson. So never mind. We have talked a lot about your Drake May stacking partners. But Hunter Henry is the third there for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is Ryan Heath's favorite player of all time. Has posters all throughout his apartment of Hunter Henry. And he had a team high 17.4% target share, 8 targets week 1. That's really cool. What's even more impressive, he had 117 air yards. That was the 4th most by any tight end in any game since the start of last season. And he gets a Miami defense that just made Tyler Warren look like Brock Bowers 2.0. Maybe it's a Josh Downs week this week, but it's Hunter Henry who goes crazy, and we're just like, oh, that's the new flowchart defense, is just play tight ends against Miami. So again, this is another reason to really like Drake May. Is Hunter Henry not too highly owned, Kayshon Boutte not too highly owned, great matchup. So I like that.
And then Juwan Johnson, just they changed the way they use him last week. Now he's still 3,600, kind of priced like the player he was before, but might just be a lot more involved in the offense this year. And that's kind of a game that you're playing into anyway. So 6% going ownership going to Juwan Johnson. You like him better than that?
Yeah, that's really like my only argument against Fan is I kind of like him the same as Juwan, but Juwan has half the ownership. You look at what happened last week, 97% snap share, which is like crazy good for a tight end. 20 XFP is first among tight ends, 8th among wide receivers. 49ers are a brutal matchup against tight ends, really typically a ceiling limiting matchup, but just Kellen Moore, pace of play, 97% snap share, no Foster Moreau, no Taysom Hill, no whoever that other guy is. So Juwan Johnson, yeah, I like him a lot.
All right. And then Brenton Strange playing against Cincinnati. He's only 3,600. Any interest there?
Yeah, you have to be encouraged about his usage in week 1, and Cincinnati might have the worst coverage linebackers and safeties in football. So that is a really good matchup for Brenton Strange.
David Njoku as leverage on Harold Fannin.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that.
Okay. Mark Andrews did nothing in week 1, but he was really
the
good.
Usage was also awful too. I'll tell you what, Chat just got it. My favorite Galaxy Brain tight end, and I never would have guessed Chat to get it.
Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. So you look at that, that's like actually not great. I mean, it's fine. 6 targets, but you see the negative air yards.
Oh no.
And you see the 53% route share.
Yeah.
So that's not great. One of the stats I had though is we kind of chased Jonnu a few times back in 2023 when he was with the Falcons, and we hit on one of his massive spike weeks. And what happened in that spike week? It was a ideal schematic matchup, and this looks like a really favorable schematic matchup. Jonnu Smith holds the fantasy points data record for fantasy points per route run against cover 0 and cover 6. Mike McDonald usually deploys that at a top 6 rate, cover 0 plus cover 6. Although maybe that's not fair because those are kind of really different coverage shells, but I don't know. Looks like a good schematic matchup. And I think he's a fine Galaxy Brain 1% tight end play. This is Arthur Smith's favorite player. So, and Arthur Smith is a son of a billionaire who is playing Madden with a real life NFL team. So why wouldn't you just scheme up Jonnu for a nice little spike week?
You know about all the Nepo babies. That's the second time on this show you brought up the parents of one of the people we're talking about.
That's right. Did you know that his father was a member of the Skull and Bones at the same time as George Bush and John Kerry? Wow. And then right before 9/11, George Bush offered his dad the position of Secretary of Defense, and he turned it down, and it went to Donald Rumsfeld. And then Arthur Smith's dad also killed multiple people in multiple days with his car.
Jeez.
Went to trial for vehicular manslaughter, but got off. Yeah,
man, well of knowledge from Scott Barrett here. I did not know that. I was looking at Noah Gray because he's another one. Speaking of those tight ends that we got on the right week, we got him right 1 week last week, and I was just thinking, could that be a Galaxy Brain play? But only 23% route participation in week 1. I was thinking maybe with
hey, they could really change things up again. They came into that and they weren't expecting it.
Any other tight ends that we need to talk about here?
Chico Conquo usage really underrated. We remember like his last 3 games, he was kind of a thing that we were chasing in DFS, and like at least the route share kind of stuck. Theo Johnson 2,900 fine punt. I said it was a Wan'Dale Robinson spot, but he's banged up, and it's a good schematic for Theo. But really, Jonnu, Okonkwo, Theo, probably not guys I'm gonna have exposure to. But if you're an MME bro, I'd sprinkle them in.
Yeah, maybe with your quarterback type plays. Should we build some lineups?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we are going to build a few lineups in the DK Millie Maker. I've already pulled it up here. Scott, do you want to do the honor of choosing the first lineup? Do you want to draft the whole first lineup, or do you want to give me names to choose from? How do you want to do this?
Let's tag team it.
Okay.
This has been tough this week to get me to kind of just narrow down.
All right. How about let's lead with mine. So I want to do a Dak double stack. So let's just do that one, get that one out of the way first, and then you can choose the stack for the second one.
Oh, are you gonna get me to play Wan'Dale on a lineup?
I hadn't even thought about that, but I should force you to play a Wan'Dale lineup.
No,
because then if we win the Millie, then I'm just gonna get all the money because you don't want
that's right.
the Wan'Dale money.
I can't touch it.
Yeah, so that would work out well for me. No, we'll just start with the stack. We don't have to do a run back. We'll start with Dak, CD, and Pickens, and then from there, I mean, do we just play Christian McCaffrey, or do we need to pay down because we kind of spent a lot with CD Lamb?
Well, let's get some of my faves in there. Let's get JSN in there.
Yep, like that.
Let's get
Did you have any cheap faves at running back?
I don't think so, to be honest.
I think they're mostly pay ups. I mean, tight end, we could go with Hunter Henry, go with one of your cheaper. Oh, we go Hunter Henry and Tyreek Hill, maybe.
No, let's go with Henry. You want to do?
Go ahead.
You want to do Kyron Rams defense?
It's kind of expensive. Well, I guess Kyron's not that bad. We got 5,800. Okay, that's not so bad. So yeah, we can play one more like mid range.
Do you want to go with Neighbors for the bring back, or do we not need one?
I don't think we need one.
Okay.
I don't know that we have the money. Oh, do you want to put Javonte in this one? That's part of as part of a full team set, or is that too much? I don't think
it's well correlated. We can go with Etienne.
Okay. And then we have 5,400 left. I like Montgomery a little bit. Ted McMillan. Pearsall's there at 5,300.
Yeah, I like that. I would go with that.
There you go. 100 left on the table.
Wow.
We got the Dak double with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. We've got Kyron correlated with the Rams defense. We have ETN, nobody from Cincinnati, JSN, Hunter Henry, Ricky Pearsall. There you have it. Gonna save this one. And then we'll play another one.
Don't forget, I got to Venmo you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Scott insisted that he's going to Venmo me from all these lineups.
Because we're actually going to win this week.
Yeah, exactly.
So I need it documented for my lawyer.
Yeah, of course. Am I your lawyer? Do you have another lawyer? Do you have an actual lawyer?
Well, John Proctor's a lawyer.
Oh, I do know that.
And so is Siege.
Is he a practicing lawyer? I thought that he gave up practicing.
Yeah, he sold his practice.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Now he's a teacher.
That's what I thought also. Okay, good. I do know the John Proctor story. All right, you lead this one.
May.
Okay. Are we playing all the guys? Are we going to play Booty? Or are we going to play?
Let's do Booty and Henry. Do we want Achane and Tyreek or just Tyreek?
Let's start with Tyreek. We could do both. The Patriot stack is pretty cheap, so it's affordable.
Yeah. All right, throw Achane in there just for now. JSN and Puka, could we do that? Or JSN and Chase?
JSN and mini JSN. We could try.
Hell yeah. Or Puka and mini Puka.
Yeah. Is that not what I said? That's what I meant.
Javonte and Cowboys defense. Can we make that work? Are we gonna have room for CMC?
Javonte.
All right, take out Javonte or take out Achane and put in CMC.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
And now perfectly Cowboys defense.
Look at that.
Oh, damn. Someone's going to steal this and chop the milli with us. That's just
really unfortunate.
Throw it in we should have made the 550 milli. There you go. I don't know if I'm playing that this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm playing that this week either.
Otherwise, not a week 2.
Yeah. Somebody else should play it. Somebody else play this lineup in the 555. Don't play it in the $20 milli.
Yeah, but then you have to split it 3 ways with us.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beauty. Drake May with Keyshawn Booty and Hunter Henry with a Tyreek Hill bring back. We've got CMC one-off. We've got Javonte Williams with the Cowboys defense, Puka Nacua and JSN as one-offs, correlated in that they are Puka and mini Puka from what I'm hearing. That's the only correlation there. Beautiful lineup, though. Beautiful lineup. Do we want to do one more?
Yeah, let's make a Mac Jones team.
Oh,
that's fun.
Are we gonna correlate with Mac Jones at all? We could do just Mac Jones and
CMC and Ricky P and
major correlation. Okay,
Olave or maybe just Juwan for right now.
Wait, which Juwan?
The tight end. Sorry. Okay. If you're still watching, please hit the like button.
Yes.
Subscribe so you can watch this every week.
Good reminder. All right. So even with Christian McCaffrey, I mean, this is a nice value stack right here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude.
Still 59.20 left per player. Are we doing JSN in every lineup? Or are we going to do?
Yeah, I would like to. That's just me.
I'm willing. Do we want to pay up for a second running back here?
Yeah.
We can probably do two pay ups and a cheap.
Yeah, let's play Derrick Henry. Fuck it. We ball.
Derrick Henry. Probably can't afford CeeDee Lamb unless we have a really cheap flex.
All right, Puka then.
I mean, we might not be able to, but we'll see. We can try it. We got cheap players. If we go with what do you think of the Titans defense? No, we're playing Puka. Never mind.
We could do Seahawks. We could do Rams. We can do Cowboys are still good, dude. Giants are gonna get destroyed, I think. But
let's try Seahawks just to see, and then we can move up if we don't like $5,100 flex options. Which I'm not sure we do.
No.
Chris Olave is 4,900 if we want to continue the game stack.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we can pay up to 2,900, not quite the Cowboys.
The Seahawks are honestly probably better than any of the 2,900 guys.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that you want to move up, or are we just happy playing this? I mean, we do have enough for
Patriots instead of Seahawks.
We could move Puka up to CeeDee Lamb if you prefer it.
Oh, screw it. Yeah, let's just do that.
Okay. Beauty. All right. Uses the full salary cap. Mac Jones with Christian McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall. Bring back of Jawan Johnson. We have Derrick Henry as a one-off. JSN.
Oh, you did Ridley instead of Olave. but maybe that was for the best. I love Ridley this week.
Crap. I did not mean to do that.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, don't touch it. That was fate.
You want me to leave it? Okay.
Us from ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you dupe this one, play Olave instead, and then show us what we could have won when you played.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You know what? I'll play it. All right. Good, and I'll give you half.
Okay. Thank you. Now I feel a lot better. Yeah. We got JSN. We got CeeDee Lamb as a one-off. Calvin Ridley accidentally as a one-off. Could have been Olave as part of the game stack, and then Seahawks paired up with JSN. I don't know if that's positively correlated, but they are on the same. They're the same team. All right, we're gonna enter that one. There you go. Three lineups. Let's win a Millie Maker this week, Scott. I like it. Anything else you want to shout out before the end of the show?
Yeah, check out the show with John Proctor tomorrow. We'll have the YouTube link in the Discord. And I love you. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, love you too, Scott. Thank you. Love the audience. Thank you all for hanging out with us for a 2-hour long stream. We try to get it under 2 hours. We came very close. But yeah, check out my Sunday Night Football article will be on Fantasy Points tomorrow. So look out for that. We've got a 2-game slate on Monday. That should be fun as well. A lot of stuff coming out at Fantasy Points. So check it all out. Thanks, guys. And we'll catch you in week 3.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.